Okay, guys. So it's good to see you. This is the last class. So quickly going over everything, I will have a uh, promotion code of class free, CLASSFREE, all in caps. And you can pick a time that works for you on, if you go and do an hour confidential reading, just pick that and put in that coupon code for yourself, and we can set some time up. I also want to do a development circle that will start at do you guys want it at 6 or 6:30? What would be best? What are you thinking?
I think either for me, 6 or 6:30, it doesn't, it's Sundays, right?
Yes.
That
So
should
how,
be,
What time zone is that again?
that's Eastern time zone.
Eastern time, thank you.
Yeah. So, and then I'll also open it up to the other class, so more members will come in and we'll have new people, so we're not reading the same people over and over again. All right, so I think I'm going to make it from 6 to 8. Let's do it from 6 to 8 then, because that will help me. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get centered and get ready to go through the lesson today. So go ahead and just center yourself and start to take some deep breaths. Make sure you're sitting up and that your spine is straight. And just start to breathe and close your eyes and just relax. Inhale up and exhale down. And just notice any tightness or tension in your body. And if you have some tightness or tension, just place your awareness there and bring in spirit's light in that area and send that area love. All right, so continue to breathe up and exhale out, exhaling everything that no longer serves you. Now imagine roots going down into the earth and that you're rooted to Mother Earth, and continue to breathe and exhale. And imagine white light coming up into your body from Mother Earth as you breathe up through your feet, through your calves. Scan that area, see if there's any tightness or tension, and let it go. Give it back to Mother Earth for healing. Now inhale up. Bring that white light up over your knees, through the thighs, the back of the legs, into the hip area. And just imagine that white light healing you, relaxing you, bringing you to the fullness of who you are. And exhale out. Now continue to breathe. Inhale up and imagine that white light going through your hips, through the abdomen, all through the energy centers, all the way up to your heart. And hold that white light and exhale things that no longer serve you, such as tightness, tension. Let it all go. Inhale up through the spine, through the back, down the arms. Imagine that white light just going through your body and bringing healing to any area that is needed. Continue to inhale up through the throat energy center area, through the shoulders and the neck. See if there's any tightness or tension there. And send that area love. And exhale things that no longer are serving you, tightness, tension. Let it all go. And inhale up through your face, relaxing the jaw, relaxing the facial muscles, relaxing that furrowed brow if you have one. Just let that all go. And exhale out. Now, when we exhale this time, we're going to go up through the crown of our head and connect with spirit that's all around us. So bring that white light all the way up. And exhale out and connect with spirit. And hold that connection. And continue to inhale and exhale down into your heart and bring that connection to the heart. Now, while you're at the heart, go behind the heartbeat, that wonderful place where we connect. What are you seeing there? What are you sensing and what are you feeling behind the heartbeat? That still place. And project yourself and that energy out into the room, expanding your energy out into the room, expanding it beyond the four walls. And let's create a bubble. And we all step out of our body and form a circle in the middle of the room. And we're holding hands. Now, noticing while we're holding hands, feel the energy that is running through the palms of our hands in a counterclockwise manner. Feel that energy running through all of us. We are all connected. Continue to run that energy. Now switch directions and allow it to go the other direction. Nice. Feel the energies in your hands. Feel the resonance throughout your body. You are pure essence. And now we invite our guides in. They're all around us. Feel them and feel the energy that they bring to the group. There are many here that are helping us with the unfoldment. And we ask them to stay as we start to open ourselves up to hear the message, to hear the instructions that we're going to go through today, and to help us with our reads as well. We are so grateful for their presence, for their love, their care. And we continue to blend with them and blend with each other as we are one with the essence of our spirit. we give thanks and express the energy of gratitude to our guides and to each other. Really express that from your heart and allow yourself to experience the gratitude that's coming to you. You can always come to Spirit with whatever is needed and know that they will be there for you. And as we hold this space, we know that they are with us. Now it's time to return to our bodies. Step in back to your body as your guides will be right next to you. And continue to breathe. Inhale and exhale. Holding the vibration of spirit. And when you're ready and it feels right for you, wiggle your fingers and toes. And when it's right, you can open your eyes. Good job, everyone. Hi, Karen Michelle. Okay. So kind of a review of what we have done. And as I was reviewing this, the one thing that I wanted to point out to everyone, on the Podia site, there's a place underneath the lessons. It says raising your vibration. And underneath there are several PDFs that I put out there for your reference. So I don't know if you guys have gone there, but it's additional information on aspects of developing a spiritual practice, which it takes discipline and consistency, specifically with meditation, going over boundaries, mediumship terminology, explaining the guide structure that we've been through, grounding and clearing, and then how to connect with the spirit world, and then also judgment versus observing, and then the code of ethics. And today we're going to go over the code of ethics. Okay, Spirit also wants me to go over judgment versus observing. And the thing is about judgment, and you know, all of us have to continue to work on ourselves, right? And so when we get triggered by someone, a lot of times it's a wound within us. Okay, so when we realize that we get triggered, it's really there showing us when it gets served up in our field for us to look at and to heal it. And so I just wanted to share that, because a lot of times when we're in judgment, we're not at a place where we're neutral, where we can observe. And sometimes when we're offering judgment, it's to keep us safe or keep us in a certain area. It's okay to have boundaries though, but it's more about not judging, you know, because all kinds of people are going to be coming to us. And there was a quote by Walt Whitman: instead of being in judgment, be curious. I paraphrase. I don't know if that's the exact quote, but if you think about it, you know, judgment kind of closes everything off, and being curious opens everything up. So explore that within you. Explore that within you. And as you feel like you're getting triggered by someone, or there's an energy that is being drained in some way, it's really important to understand to call back your energy. You know, call it back. Release that energy that doesn't belong to you and send it back to someone with healing. So this is a practice of mediumship, but it's also a practice of working with energy. When you start to understand, you know, if someone sends something out to you, okay, and you just happen to be there. I mean, these things happen energetically. So if you are in the midst of somebody having a, you know, complete meltdown or whatever, you know, you could be the recipient of a lot of energy. So I just want to call that to your attention, so you're able to deal with it. And the key is to dissolve that energetic cord, let it go, send the energy away with healing, and then call back your energy. And there are a lot of times when you are doing readings that people can hang on, you know, they can hang on. So we need to release that and let it go every single time we do a read. So if we're at an expo or whatever, we have to clear ourselves between each read, because the energy builds up and builds up, and you're taking on other people's energy. And it's really great because you end up being in this blissful place because you've been with spirit all day. But then you have to release that energy and ground yourself and clear the energy. And I spend a lot of time grounding, where I go outside in my bare feet and ground. And what I, you know, and we've discussed this before, but I just want to review it with you, because a lot of times, unless we're in the habit of doing it, we don't think of it. And it can be also, it could be anything, where all of a sudden we are feeling, we might not even know that we've had energy that we absorbed. Even going, you know, there's a lot of people that don't like to go out into crowds, because the fact that they're going to be absorbing all that energy. And so this is about releasing energy that doesn't belong to you, and allowing your energy to shine forth, letting your light shine versus taking it on. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, good. Yeah, Karen Michelle. You're welcome, Anita.
Is it all right if I make a comment?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, we're all in this together.
With people, and I know that, and this is from my experience with as a therapist, that it takes a lot for a lot of people to trust where they can cry in front of you. And when they're coming in and they're talking about a loved one and they start crying, it's kind of an honor that they trust you enough to cry. And maybe instead of feeling like you need to fix something, because a lot of times that's the impulse, is to panic and feel like you have to fix it, is to kind of be honored that they trust you enough to come to you with that, and to have that emotion in front of you as nothing that you have to fix, but to be able to hold that space and allow that to happen. And that's a gift to them, to allow them to be able to have that, because it's an interruption if you try to go in and fix the tears. rather than to let it come out while you're doing the reading. And I don't know if that's how it is with the reading, but that's how it is during a session, is to kind of allow that and have that space.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what I've seen or experienced is that when the tears come, it's a release and it's a healing moment. It's a healing moment, and you know that spirit just touched them. And I'm just so grateful when that happens, because I know that spirit has them, and that it's from the heart, and we're delivering it from the heart, and we've moved them to know that spirit has them, and that there's evidence, and that they've connected with their loved one, and it's so beautiful, really. So yeah, thank you for that, Karen Michelle. And like you said, just hold space. And yeah, so a lot of people are doing work. Christy, you're being a nurse. Tom, when you were dealing with patients and so forth. Anita, you're doing coaching, and Silka, you're doing mediumship. I'm sure you've experienced that as well, and then also Joe, just last week you experienced that with Davina, right? And it was so different than being in the mind. Yeah. So that was a breakthrough for you, but it was also a beautiful message for Davina as well, So anyways, I had to stop there, but just know that those PDFs are underneath, and you can go to them at any time. I'm going to leave all that up. You should be able to log in at any time. And those PDFs are out there for your review. And then the other thing that I did, and I haven't used that this much, but it's called a post-reading reflection. And I thought about giving this out. I've tested it with a few people, but what this is, because I record it, so I haven't been really doing this lately, but it's like, what were the key things? These are questions for a sitter that I wrote out. And if you guys want to use that, you can. It's out there. Please feel free. But what are the key things that I learned from my reading today? What were the things that made me feel good? I felt this is the perspective of a sitter. I felt comfort when. I felt validated when. Was there anything that came through that helped you focus on self-care? What did Spirit advise me to do? What actions did they advise me to take, if any? What did not make sense, or something that you were unsure of that was said? A lot of times it's great to capture those things, because a year later, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's one of those wow moments, right? What was the most surprising thing that you heard in your reading? Why did it surprise you? And, and then if there was anything that they wanted to explore. So I just kind of put that together for people. Feel free to use it, steal it, whatever. Even though I have don't worry about the copyright, just steal it. You're good. Okay. So a real quick review. Any questions about that or comments? Okay. Okay, so just going back over the agenda, we learned how to connect with and working with spirit, we started to meet our spiritual guides, right? And we started to develop and interpret symbols to give powerful and accurate messages. We started talking about evidence, the accurate evidence, and then the messages of healing, guidance, upliftment, and reassurance. So what we started to do is develop your spiritual language. Everybody has this ability, and our gifts might come in differently. And so to make sure that you don't compare, it's about your language with spirit and figuring that out and what that is and what makes your heart sing. And so just know that. And then we tested your clairs to see what your dominant clair was, so you can work with that to have some success. And then as the other ones build out, we talked about the different types of evidence that are out there as far as timing, the relationship to a sitter, their occupations, hobbies, habits, flowers, colors, symbols, that type of thing. Lifetime events, personality types, timing of the year, and then putting it all together for the sitter. And then, to develop confidence in trusting spirit, the key is to stay in the essence. And we talked about, I gave the analogy like cocoon, where they zipped off their humanness and all of a sudden they became a bright light. And that's how we blend with spirit. And that's where we want to give the messages, not from our ego. We want to totally become spirit and blend with spirit and allow that information to come through. And to try to keep our logical mind out of the way, right? Did I just see that? What just happened? That type of thing, which is all normal when we start. So, and you'll see that as you continue. And then as you practice, and as we were opening up class today before the recording, Silke brought up development circles, and they're wonderful, especially in person. If you have where you want to form one in your area, and do that is really wonderful. I know, like where John is, there is a store there, and they do meditation, and then they do cards, then they do messages all the time. And then I would go in there, and John would do mediumship, and I would do mediumship as they're doing psychic, and they let us to do that, to practice, Yeah, Anita. Mm-hmm.
So I have a question, and I'm gonna preface it with just a quick little story about something that happened to me today. And I think a lot of us, especially when we're in the beginning stages, probably have this concern or this question. So today I was reading an article about the oldest cold case in the United States. It's about these two teenagers that went missing in upstate New York in 1973. They're reopening the case again because it's the 50th anniversary. So I read this article about it. There were a few details, but not a lot. But as I was reading, I kept getting like these images, like I could see like a movie, everything that had happened to these teenagers. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm not saying I have any kind of ability and what I saw is what happened. That's not what I'm saying, but it made me remember that every time I get information, I do try to just like not get my ego mind involved and just like trust it and let it go. Like, yeah, it's my imagination, but who's sending that to my imagination? Spirit is. I do try to trust and let go and just believe whatever I'm getting is there. I'm getting it for a reason. But I do have a very creative imagination. I write stories. I've written a novel. And so where is that line? And how do I know when I veered back into ego mind of just my creation of events and out of spirit? Like, how do I know that?
Yeah, so you're bringing up a very good point about forensics. Okay. And the forensics, uh, that is a whole different area. And there are people that specialize in working with forensics. And what I do, because you're talking about total trust, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what that's all about, right?
Yeah, and I wrote down in an app on my phone, like I recorded, meaning like I wrote it out really fast, like everything that I saw. We'll just wait and
Good.
see, like, if they ever solve this case. It would be interesting to me, like if there were any connections whatsoever.
Yeah, good. So do that. And that's what I do too.
Mhm.
And there are times where somebody was murdered and they said they found him here, and I'm like, oh no, they didn't.
Mm.
I know, I just know that they didn't find them there, but it's not. So, okay, I have a lot of thoughts that are running through my head about that. So there are people that specialize in teaching forensic with mediumship. One of the people that do that is Lisa Williams. And I was actually going to take her class and I haven't yet. I was going to do a week immersion, and then COVID hit, and then I didn't do it. There's also remote viewing, and you have to get with the right remote viewer. Okay. So when you have remote viewing is a very, we didn't get into this, but I'll share this with you. Remote viewing is different. It's a scientific way, and it's a method that they developed in the military, where they have proven that anybody can remote view. And it's kind of like the same thing. You don't judge the information you get. You just start writing it out. And there's certain things that your soul knows that they teach you how in the beginning, like all of a sudden you just let your pen go. And was that water? Was that, what was it that you were because you'll have symbols with water, or I took a remote course and I was tapping my pen and I could feel that this was rough, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is a volcano. And it actually it was a volcano erupting. And so that was the and we did it, John. Remember, I brought envelopes to class, and it was fun because it was Christmas. So I put everything Christmas theme, and I wrote on there was a picture in it, and I wrote on it what it, like, was it a person, place, or thing, or was it a song, that type of thing. And it was amazing what happened in the group. I'm telling you, it was amazing. And this one girl said, it was Kate, she says, Rochelle, she says, I am so distracted. There's a spirit here in a nightgown. I said, write it down. Because her thing was a picture of grandma got run over by a reindeer. Okay. So I said, write it down. And so they collectively got the information, because I broke them up in groups. And it was amazing how they figured all this out. And so it's very okay. And then I want to tell you another story about Mary Ellen Rodriguez, where a spirit actually solved his own murder. But I want to caution you about doing that at this stage. I really feel that we need training. But what you can do is write it out, whatever you got, and follow that case. Okay. I'm very leery about feeling comfortable doing that without more training about forensics. But I'll tell you the story about Mary Ellen Rodriguez. She's out of Ohio. She's amazing. I just love her. She knew my aunt and the whole bit. And she was on Psychic Investigators. and this was out of Canada, and they actually, you can look her up on YouTube, and it was the spirit Daryl. So it was really funny because my mentor, Tim Brainerd, is actually in Ohio. And I was sitting there and Psychic Investigators came on, right? And it was about Mary Ellen Rodriguez, and she was in Eastern Ohio and near the Pennsylvania border, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, the spirit showed up. And the bottom line is that they take you through this entire story, and you can look at it on YouTube. And he would not leave her alone. And he would ride in the back seat with her she owned this like convenience store, and she was a medium, but this took her mediumship to a new level. While I'm sitting there in my living room watching this, Daryl is standing in my living room. And I thought, what the heck is Daryl standing in my living room for? Well, anyway, so I watched it, and I knew he was a nice guy. I mean, he really was. The spirit was so nice. And she said, listen, there was all these things. So watch it. It's really cool. And the one thing that she said, she was actually working with a detective, and she was working with the family. And he told her, the spirit, Daryl, said, I want to wear my blue suit to the funeral. And she goes, if we don't find your body, you're not going to be able to fit in that blue suit. He says, you'll find my body on Tuesday. And on top of that, they were sitting in the courtroom, and this did not appear on the documentary. But what happened was, she was sitting in the courtroom, and the problem is that they didn't find the gun, and they couldn't find the gun. And she heard the suspect, who they knew had done it, because Daryl kept saying, that Fickle, that Fickle, that Fickle. Well, that was the guy's last name. And so he was a deacon in the church. And he was sitting there in the courtroom as they're doing this, and she's watching it. And she heard, the gun's under the porch, stupid, meaning that's what he said in his mind. She went up to the detective and told him what was said, that she heard this guy's thoughts. And they went out there, and they went to the underneath the porch, and they found the gun. And the point is, with Mary Ellen, she wasn't trained. But what happened was this spirit showed up, and he was so relentless that he helped solve his own murder. And of course, I get on the phone with Tim the next day. Tim, do you know Mary Ellen? Oh, hell yeah. I've known her for 40 years, the type of thing. I went, okay, cool. What's her number? So I called her, and I said, I was just, like glued to the television watching this and everything. And, I told her who I was and who my aunt was and all of that. And she's like, Rochelle, it changed my mediumship forever. And I said, Daryl was standing in my living room. And I described, she says, yeah, that was him. That's him. That's definitely him. And so she told me some of the things that didn't make it into the cut of the show. But, I don't know if we seek out forensics, or if this is something that, and I got to tell you, okay, that isn't the end of the story. So what happened was, I go to Lilydale, right? And I meet Tim up there, and they have the bus. This was a different year, not this year. I go up there, and Tim pulls me, and he says, you're doing readings in the auditorium. You're a visiting medium. You're going to do them. I went, all right. It's like, are you sure? Because they have all these strict rules and stuff. And so he says, oh yeah, just sign, you're a visiting medium. You can go up there and do readings. And he goes, hey, Mary, blah, 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 blah. I looked, and there's Mary Ellen Rodriguez. And her and I worked together that day. We gave readings in the auditorium. We gave readings back at the stump. And it was just, I just grabbed her and I just hugged her. And because of what she went through with her mediumship. And so if you feel led to do forensics, I'm not the teacher to do that. I need my own, and I told her, I said, she said, Rochelle, you can do this. And it's like, why do you, it's just like anything else. But I have a block there. So I've got to get through that block, either through doing a remote viewing course or doing, a forensics course, because I don't want to be wrong. And it's the same thing with all of us, right? So there's my, Achilles heel right there when it comes, I let it flow with everybody else, their people are coming in, blah, blah, blah. But because there's a lot of people depending on the information that is coming through.
Oh, of course. And if you're not well trained, you could do damage. But just so you know, I'm here because I'm curious. I'm not trying to be anything.
No, I understand.
Yeah. And that goes straight to my question though, like, even if I were, how do I know what's really coming from spirit and what my imagination and my ego mind is conjuring for entertainment value in my own mind? I don't know.
So your spirit will validate it, right? Your
Hmm?
spirit will validate the evidence that's coming through. Yeah, John.
Oh, I just wanted to say, as she works with spirit more, it's going to be more clear what's her thinking and what's coming from spirit. And any other medium that will tell you that too. A lot of it is just practice, because you'll come to know, no, that's my thought. No, that's not my thought, and it'll be quite clear after a while.
Yeah, it'll feel definitely different.
So it's probably different for each person. They just know when they know based on practice. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that's a really good answer, John. Thank you for that, because that's really the truth right there. Oh, yeah. Oh, Stacy, this is right up your alley, right? You had this is hitting home. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's amazing. So if you feel drawn to this, I really want to encourage you. And if you want more information on some courses, I would be happy to help with that. You might find me in that course as well. But it's less pressure when you have somebody sitting in front of you and everything flows. And so it's my corporate, whatever that would get in my way, that I have to take my mediumship to the next level. And even talking to Mary Ellen Rodriguez and her encouraging me, I just have this hesitation. But anyways, so my vulnerability there. Remember, we always have to close the door to spirit. Like we talked about, like Lisa Williams would take her ring off. I do a prayer. I say a prayer to open up the door. And then, when I'm done and, and thank you and so forth. And I disconnect, and then I ground and clear. So you don't have to always remain open to spirit. You need your time. It's about self-care and so forth. Although we love staying up in the high vibrational stuff, and then Karen Michelle, you're in a situation where you might be always open, where you're constantly seeing these things. And which, you know, you still can put boundaries and time for self-care as well. So just know that, okay? Okay, so getting into day. Oh, the other thing, you guys, I have a 59-page workbook out there. I don't know if you guys saw it out there, but it is out there, and there's exercises in there too. It's actually underneath that. I'm going to have it reprinted. I'm trying to get it done for the IONS conference, where it matches the size of my book. So I do a book set, because the other one is kind of like it's 8.5 by 11. So I'm trying to get that reprinted, but the PDF is out there and hopefully it will help you. So I just wanted to call that attention to that book to your attention as well. Okay, so no, that's not it. Okay, so we're going to talk about ethics a little bit, morals and ethics. Okay, the one thing about the UK mediums and the US mediums, this is where it really differs because of the laws that exist. There's a code of conduct. It's called the Fraudulent Mediums Act of 2008. And so when you're training in the UK, they're very much about evidence. And I think, it's my opinion, that it's about the fact that this law exists, and so it's really important that if you are, you know, a UK medium, to know about this. And it's a consumer protection that was put in place. So they really stress evidence, where in the US here, it's more considered entertainment. So it's less of a, you know, it's looked at differently. I don't know. Jacqueline, I know you're over there. Do you have any comments about that? Do they talk about that when you went through training at all?
Well, a bit. Like, it's, yeah, you have to give evidence, and it can't be generic evidence. So they usually, when you're training, they talk about give three pieces of strong evidence. So when you're connecting with spirit, and that's how I was kind of trained. And then once you've got three strong non-generic pieces of evidence, then you can move on to the message.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it was drummed in not to give generic evidence, because, for example, if you're on platform and you have, there's a male coming through, I think his name could be John, or something beginning with Jane, he lived on Church Road and he went to Joseph's school. And if it wasn't his car, he knew somebody with a red car. Doesn't really help anybody, and you could be anywhere. So it has to be really specific, strong three pieces of evidence. So you can say, right, you're actually with that person, and then you can say, okay, so can I work with you? And then you go from there. But yeah, it is very much like that. And I think it's more, well, when it comes to insurance, you kind of have to say this is for entertainment purposes, but like if you're doing one-on-one readings. But I think in the UK it's taken a bit more seriously with the mediumship, but because there's so many people that scam people, that's why this rule is in place, if you like. That's why it's legal. But in Europe, it's things like I do Reiki and things, and it's like in the UK, you're not allowed to give anybody a mediumship reading. If you get something, you're not allowed to give anybody a reading without having their permission first, which you would think that was normal anyway. But in Europe, that doesn't exist. So that means if you're working with energies, that's what they call it here. If you're working with energies, they can say, oh, I've just been given this and I want to pass it on to you. And they don't need to ask your permission. They just freely say it, because they, again, it's like, maybe it's not taken so deeply or so serious, I think. But yeah, in UK, it's quite, they're very particular about what you do and you have to follow certain rules and things like that. Particularly if you're in the churches, you have to, if you're going in the spiritual churches, there are definite rules you have to follow. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in Casadega, as I step into your energy, blah, 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 and I leave you with love and blessings. I mean, that's how they do their reads. And you have to do it in that way. Yeah. And there are scammers here too. Lots of scamming.
Oh, they're everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's
sad.
so-
It's sad because it makes it hard work for us all.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, the key is when you do this work, it's important that you do this responsibly. It's, you know, you're serving spirit. And so just know that. And, you know, there's just, you know, one of the things that I don't do is I don't give any information that's going to be harmful to the client in any way. And, you know, it's really important that when we do read that we do it with discernment, you know. I never predict death, even though I might see it. I don't predict death, because that's something that is, what do I want to say? It's something very personal between them and God. We all have exit points. We all have exit points. And whether we decide to take them or not. So if you see that, just know, just take a moment and, you know, not go down that road. And make sure that you keep the reading confidential and you read for that sitter. So in other words, you know, women come and say, well, is he cheating on me? And the answer is not to give that answer. The answer is the key is that this, you read them and it's about them. And so the fact that they're asking that question, what is it within them that is causing that? Is it a level of insecurity? You know, is spirit wanting them to work with their insecurity? You know, there's all kinds of, we don't read other people without their permission. That's the key. Okay. Yeah, Karen Michelle.
I had somebody, and this was a very long time ago, and it was cards. And there was somebody else in here who also had someone predict death with them. I had somebody predict that with me. And I'm just saying that to bring up a point that sometimes they have that and they're right. And the timing was right. And it may cause a panic. And it did raise a panic with me, but I came back. And so you don't know what that means and what the agreement is either when
Exactly.
with that. It may be a death and come back, which was with the other person too. So you don't know if it's a final cross, if it's a comeback. And so it's really an unnecessary panic. And it is, I do agree, it's a relationship between them and God. And it's so intimate. It's very intimate experience.
Right. And on top of that, if they're doing a psychic read and it comes up, it might be a family member. It might not be them. And so it's really important that we never predict death, even though we might have a strong feeling that there is going to be a transition. Just realize that transformation happens in everyone's life. And really, if it's their turn to go to the spirit world, that's really a transformation, isn't it? It's everything, all is well with spirit, always. Always. We judge death. It's something horrible. So just know that. So remember, you are reading for the sitter, and that it's always important to bring the information in a positive manner, because that's the way spirit would want it. Okay. And we hope that our sitter leaves being in a better place than when they first came to us. So always keep that in mind. And, you know, a lot of times they might come to us and they're experiencing negative emotions or whatever. And a lot of times they might be going through a life experience that we have experience with. And so if that is the case, spirit really brought them to you, and your spirit too. So realizing where they're at, you know, like, I'm through this, but they're in the middle of it. How do we help them through it? What are some of the key things that we can help guide them? What is the next step that you see for them? What are the things that you did to come out of it? And how can you deliver that in a positive way that will help them? So always stay uplifted and positive, and always continue to keep learning and growing. Now, some of the don'ts, okay, is don't predict death. We talked about that. Even if you potentially see an accident or something that is going to happen, you know, it's really important that, you know, that they have a positive spin on that, you know. Never dress up like a madam or a psychic, unless you know, unless you're doing like a Halloween party, you know, try not to do that. I mean, you look like, you know, we're supposed to, it just looks weird or fake. And we really, you know, and then calling different names, you know, different, try to be professional with integrity. That's the important thing. And never prescribe or diagnose. When I see something come up, and spirit might give me something, this is how I say it, because I've done a lot of research. I'll say, I'm not a doctor. I cannot prescribe. Check with your doctor. But this is something, just think about this and see if it resonates with you, and check with your doctor to see if it's something that you feel both, if it would help you. And that's how I put it. But I never prescribe and say, you should do this or you should do that. Sometimes I get a flash in my mind of something that would help them. And I say, would you like me to share this with you? I don't, you know, I don't readily give it because I just, like, I had a woman that came and she was on schizophrenic medication. Okay. And she told me she was hearing voices, and that, you know, she was hearing these voices, and they put her on medication. And I said, well, describe to me what these voices were saying to you. So she described them, and I'm like, you know, and I said, I'm not a doctor. But what I'm sensing with all this is that you're hearing the voice of spirit. And I said, so this is between you and your doctor, or however you feel. She got off her medication, and, you know, I empowered her. I didn't take it away. You know, she went to a psychologist and said she was hearing voices. She was hearing the voice of spirit because it was all positive. It wasn't saying go murder somebody or whatever. I mean, it was literally uplifting. It was guidance, healing, upliftment, and reassurance. it fell into those categories. And so I knew she wasn't schizophrenic. And her and her daughter came back to see me, and they said, we decided that we're not, she's not going to take the medication anymore. And her life transformed. And I said, what else has Spirit been telling you? She says, well, she says, my daughter's going to be pregnant soon. I said, see? And she was pregnant. So it's, but the key is that it can't be me saying it. It has to be their decision. But based on what I saw, I went out on a limb in that moment because I know Spirit, and they you go into a psychiatrist's office and you start telling them you hear voices, just wait and see what they throw you on. So just be careful about that. And so, she got into training, she did a lot of healing, she transformed and blossomed. I mean, this woman was amazing. So just know that. Now, so just be careful. I went out on a limb, but we don't prescribe. Okay. Remember that we're dealing with free will, right? We're dealing with free will. And so to predict the future and say that this is going to happen, you might see something like that. But, know that, and you can give a date range and so forth, but you just don't want your readings to come back and bite you in the butt, so just know that. So try to reframe things, and sometimes you have to think on your feet when you're getting the information and do that and redeliver it and so forth. So just know that. Okay. So these do's and don'ts are out there on the underneath that section of raising your vibration. And remember, really, I really encourage everyone to spend time clearing and releasing old traumas and old wounds. The more you release those old traumas and old wounds and heal from those things and give forgiveness and forgive yourself and all of that, the more you make room for Spirit to come in and your gifts to come in. And as we heal, Spirit starts to unfold and reveal many things to us. So just know that. And with regular practice and, heart-based meditations, those are really key and the central thing to your mediumship development. Okay. Any questions? No? Oh, hi, Diane. Yeah. Oh, I can't hear you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can, but I turned your camera around.
Oh, okay. Well, what happened to me?
That's all right.
All right. My question is, if you have, like, say, a little lull in meditation, I was on vacation. I wasn't meditating every day the way I like to do. Can I get right back into it? Or
You're
do
not
I
gonna
have to start? Can you hear me? Or do I start over, or how do I handle that is what I'm saying. I'm a little embarrassed to say that, but it happened.
You're being too hard on yourself. Life happens, right? Yeah. And there are times where, that, life happens. And, if we can just take a minute and it's really with a breath, right? And if we just spend time and close our eyes and align and, and everything, that, sometimes that's enough until we get back into it. Okay. Jacqueline, okay. If you have to drop off, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go, but really thank you everybody, and it's been really lovely to meet you all and listen to your stories, and yeah, maybe we cross paths again. So thank you very, very, very much.
Yeah.
But it's late here, and yeah, it's been a crazy day. But Rochelle, I definitely will catch up with you. It's just I just need everything's just a bit crazy in my life at the minute.
Sure.
But when we can, let's catch up, and yeah, there's
Sure.
loads of things I want to speak to you about.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Okay.
Okay. But best wishes to you all. Lots of love. Bye.
Lots of love. Bye. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah. And then, okay. And then Christy, go ahead. And then after that, we'll take a break. And after we get everybody's questions answered. Okay.
Just quickly, in response to two things, in response to Diane, don't feel bad. That just happened to me. I have had a wickedly crazy week. And honestly, it was a good learning experience for me because, oh my gosh, I had such a breakdown over this giant party. It wasn't even funny. And I think Spirit led Rochelle today to talk about, our blocks and our triggers because, oh my gosh, was I triggered. And just went completely full on human. I mean, it was just something, but what a learning experience. And, even though I didn't meditate like I normally do, and I came in today with just like all this heaviness and tiredness and just being off with my energy, I realized I'm only off as long as I tell myself I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I can that will be cleared out. It's only temporary. And I have to, all it is just an intention of shifting my idea and my story about what's actually happening around me. And so that's how, I don't know what you think about that, Rochelle, but that's kind of what I was getting this morning, because I was almost even creating a barrier to come in class today. And I'm like, no. You're telling yourself a story, and that story is just a story, and you need to just let it go. And so that was great. And Diane, I appreciate you sharing that because I'm right there with you on how you felt. So I could validate your feelings for sure. So don't be embarrassed. I think it was brave of you to even talk about it. And then just a second question to you, Rochelle, was when you were talking about clearing and healing and like old blockages. I just wanted to know, with the reading or the class-free reading that you said you would offer to us, the one-time hour, is that something that you do, like to help identify blockages? Or
I can, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I can, and we can talk about it and so forth. And that's
Okay.
something, and at least give you tools,
Okay.
to deal with that as well.
Okay.
And just to comment, Diane, you judging yourself about not meditating. Stop judging yourself. That's what I'm talking about. It's like you go to neutral and you say, I wasn't able to meditate. What about that? Instead of going, I'm a horrible person because I didn't meditate today. It's see the difference? It's like, I haven't had the time, and that's okay. And, it's also about, I spent a lot of time calling back my energy and clearing it. And Spirit gave me this symbol when I was clearing, and doing it in a spiral. I saw a dove with a olive branch. And that's when I know it's cleared. And so, it's just about, it's okay. It's just, taking the breath. This is the other thing you can do. If you don't have time, just take a deep breath, close your eyes for a minute, exhale, and send love out into the room and invite Spirit in. Just like that. Just like that. Okay? It's all right. Don't judge yourself. We're all human, and we can connect with the breath for that moment, and it's all good. Got it? Yeah. Do you guys want to practice reads today, or I'm going to give you a choice. We can talk about like lower level energies, soul rescues, house clearings, or do you want to practice? How many people want to practice? No? Okay. And okay, I'm going to say this again for Silka. Silka, we're going to take a break, but I just asked everybody, do they want to practice mediumship, or do they want me to talk about lower vibrational beings, house clearings, soul rescues, and all of that?
Either or is fine with me. I have to apologize. My internet, my router is going out. So it knocked me completely offline again. It happened to me the last time. So I apologize if my internet connection is weak.
Okay, no worries, no worries. I think I went through that the other day where it opened up 20 browsers. It was crazy. My system went nuts. So how many want to talk about lower level vibration entities? Okay. All right, you want to do that? Okay, so we'll do that versus practice. And then we're going to start the group. I think we should do it once a week. Let's do it once a week, where we'll start from 6 to 8, and I'll send out a new thing for the development circle from 6 to 8 Eastern time, and that's where we'll practice. Okay, so let's take a quick break, and then maybe, you know, just a few minutes and come back, and then we'll talk about the wonderful other entities that are out there. Okay. So if you turn your camera off, if you'll turn your camera back on when you're here, that would be great. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
My mom died very violently just a couple years ago, and so that's I'm being careful kind of what I say, because there's a case going on now, and you know, and I was told that, you know, take 30 days to grieve and get over it, and then we need to kind of move on. And my jaw was on the floor, and it was said in, to be kind of mean, it was said in a controlling way, and that was at the funeral. That was at the funeral, like right after the service, a big hug and take 30 days, and you need to move out, get out. And then when I would talk to other people, well, you know, we have a grief group, and so you're going to go through these stages. And I'm thinking, you know, I've been a therapist for XYZ amount of years, and it's not a cookie cutter. I'm okay, well, I'm going to take this amount of time and I'll go through denial. And then I'll take this. I know what happened. I know what happened. I know how I feel. And you don't just kind of put up a chart and say, well, okay, this week I think I'll do this, and then next week I'm going to do that. What's wrong? And I don't want to seem ungrateful, because that seems to be what they read, and that's what they're doing. And then I know it's the pandemic, but the drive-by, have some food. And it was almost, I know I'm laughing about it, but it was almost comical, because there's this fear of, I don't want to get too close because that might be more contagious than COVID. And a fear of wanting to actually come in and talk to you is, are you okay? I don't want to take the mask off because somebody on my family might die too. I don't know. You know, it's just such a fear-based subject, even if it's your own culture. And I did appreciate somebody dropping off food because I didn't want to leave the house. It was just that it was so quickly. We can't talk right now. We're masking. So you do know you're 9 feet away on the porch. It's the fear. It's they don't really know how to deal with that. And I don't know. I'm able to sit and listen to it, and I know there needs to be more, but I do hear one story after another about, well, I was told I need to go through these phases, or they don't want to hear it. And I I remember the nurse or social worker trying to tell my mom and I when it was us at the hospital about my dad passing away. He'd already passed. I was watching I was watching him walk around in the hallway, and I'm thinking, well, he's not in his body anymore. How long is she going to take to say it? She took a half hour. And I finally asked, can we see him? And she said, well, we're prepping him. And my mom said, is he alive? And she said, no, I'm sorry. She couldn't say it. So
Right.
anyway, I
Well, you know, this is this is what I have learned, Karen Michelle, about the stages of grief. They're not linear. They are not linear. You keep revisiting and revisiting and revisiting and revisiting. And that's what happens. And it's circular. And the first year you are frozen. The second year, you know, and it's even longer if you have a child. And that's why the key is, if you have somebody that is experiencing grief in front of you, please talk to them about their vulnerability. That's very important, because a lot of people, they want to do something with it. They, you know, if they lost a husband, they're looking for another wife, and it's like, time out. No, don't do that, because you're going to end up with a narcissist or a predator. You don't want to do that. You know, you don't. And just be with themselves. Yeah. Would you say, Anita? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I keep going on and on. This is my topic. I'll stop. I don't want to monopolize the class, but like, I just go on and on.
Yeah.
I know a lot, you know, but yeah.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
probably should expand the topic. And I know, Kathy, you have your hand up, and I know that you've been through this, losing a husband, right? And I told you to be careful, didn't I?
I was told through another medium not to let anybody take advantage of you from my husband. And I was very vulnerable. And I did let somebody take advantage of me, you know, and it's still with me. And that's something maybe, Rochelle, you and I can talk about at one point, because it's on my mind a lot. But one of the things that I've heard recently, or in the near future, is that grief is love. You know, and I don't know how else to say that, but grief is love. And when you start thinking about it that way, yeah, you can deal with it differently, because they say there's all these stages and then you get over it. You don't get over it. Grief is, you can call it something else, but it's always there. And I remember going to this one class. This was when somebody else in the family had passed away. It's called Grief Share. I know it's a worldwide or national maybe organization, and it's got this workbook. You go through all these videos and everything, and then you break up into groups. And this one group, I think the question was, do you remember a feeling? No. Do you remember a memory? That's what it was. A memory about somebody. So I said something about my mother, and knowing that I felt her presence in my kitchen, and she was telling me things to do. And this counselor said, well, that doesn't sound like a memory at all. That's more like a feeling or something. And she just brushed it off. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, I'm not coming back, you know. That's,
For sure.
yeah, so it is definitely different for everybody,
Yeah,
you know.
it
Um,
is. And grief is something that we all experience at one time or another in our lives. And the one thing as mediums that we get to have a relationship and continue that on. It's still different. Doesn't mean that we're not going to grieve.
mm-mm.
I mean, I'm really going to lose it when my aunt passes. You'll have to pick me up off the floor.
Well, you know that she'll be with all the other mediums that
Oh
she's
yeah,
with for
they'll
sure.
be up there having a good time.
Her and Janet Novak and
Yeah,
all those.
right.
Mhm.
And so just it's really important that you understand some of these things about grief and understanding that it takes its own time. It's something that we have to be we really have to really bring spirit in when you have somebody in front of you like that. And you got to trust spirit. They're looking for answers. Yeah. And yeah, the relationship doesn't die. It just changes. It really does. It just changes. And it's us getting to that point where we have a relationship. And I'll tell you what, my parents are all around me, and my brother is too, and they have guided me. And my brother came in with a very strong message one day when I was waking up, and boy, he was very adamant. And I'll tell you what, I listened to him, and I'm glad I did. So they can see things and help us. But that does not circumvent the grieving process. Okay. It just doesn't circumvent it, no matter what. And so I appreciate the courage that everybody has shown today about talking about not only their personal experience and being vulnerable. And I'm so grateful for all of you, because that's where we become extremely raw and vulnerable. And that's the way people come to us when they have lost people as well. And we have to be very responsible. And that's what the topic was today, is about the level of responsibility and ethics that have to occur when we have someone in front of us. And the two toughest, which is what Anita, well, I don't want to minimize anybody's grief. I mean, losing a spouse, losing a child, losing a father violently, these are all things that are really tough. The key is that we know that they're okay now, but that does not mean that we're totally healed, because we love so much and they were so close to us. And we have to honor that with that person in front of us, and realize that we are not licensed counselors. We're not. The other thing is that making sure that you have like the National Suicide Hotline, because there have been people that will call you and say that. And so you're not a trained professional. So make sure that you have that number handy if they're reaching out to you for a reading, because we have to know our limitations as well. Okay. We can't take on the world. And that's a boundary where we know where we're effective and where we're good, and where we really have to turn it over to a professional that have been trained appropriately. Make sense? Okay. All right. In that vein. Okay, so I'm going to talk about lower level vibrational spirits, and this is my personal experience. So this is, I don't know if you'll read this in a book, and you have to decide where you want to work. And like I said, you have dominion over all of this. Before I dive into that, does anybody have any questions or other comments before I go into this other subject? And how are we doing on time? Can you stay for a little bit? Okay. All right, good. Okay. So this is based on my personal experience of house clearings, of clearing lands, the term of soul rescue. Now, my aunt said, she always said, there are no evil spirits. And she's right, they're not evil, they're lower vibration, but she said they all come from love. Well, my experience has been different, okay? In that I've been in houses where there's been spirits wreaking havoc, okay? I've had spirits where they were murdered and they were confused, and it was some traumatic event, and they didn't know what happened. They didn't even know what year it was. One guy was from 1978, and he was looking for his dog. And another one was stuck. And so what happens is, okay, first of all, let's talk about, I'm going to do this in two categories. One, where there are people that have maybe passed of a trauma and they really don't know that they're past, or because they might even be Christian, and because they didn't see Jesus, they still think that they're alive, or they haven't gone to the light because they might even have some, well, I can't go there because they're judging themselves type of thing. This has happened. Okay. And so I had a guy that was actually murdered, and he was hanging out in this house, and he was confused, but he was a little bit angry too. And so what I did was I talked to him. The first thing you want to do is get the spirit to think about love. Okay. Because if they're angry, I mean, if they're a motorcycle guy or something like that, they can be quite, it can be quite the ordeal. And so the first thing you want to do is get them thinking about love. What in your life did you love? Was it a cat? Was it a dog? Was it your mother? Who was it that you really, really loved? And what happens is you'll feel the vibration range, this raise. That's why it's really important for you to understand energy. So if you're feeling a lower level energy, it, what can you do to get the spirit to raise its vibration to love? And when you do, usually a white light will appear above their head. And I start to talk to them and say, why would you ever want to stay here? It's so beautiful and so loving up there, and all your friends and family are there. They're waiting for you to give you a hug. That cat that you loved is up there, something. And it's okay. You're going to be fine. They're going to love you. They're going to celebrate you. Just trust and go. And they usually do, but you have to get them to think about love first. That's the key. And, what happens is everybody goes to fear. Well, they're feeding off of that fear because they're feeding off of that vibration. So you want to stay in the love vibration. And like, they play all this scary music and stuff. And I remember seeing this one over in Europe where this woman was screaming, and they had this priest over there trying to exorcise him out of the home and stuff. And it's like, I was going, oh my God, that poor spirit, that poor spirit. She just needs to be loved. She's screaming, and and they make it all scary and stuff. And so, so if you're, first of all, you always have to have permission of the person who owns the property to do it. Okay. If they do not give you permission, forget it. It's not going to happen. All right. Second thing, if there's an alcoholic or a drug user in the house, they can have a codependent relationship with a spirit. And they might not be ready to let that person go because it's their drinking buddy or whatever, believe it or not. Okay. It does happen. I went to a house out in Gun Lake, John, got there, guy was an alcoholic. This thing was wreaking havoc all over that house. The dogs were barking. It was crazy. Okay. And I came in with love and I calmed it all down, talked to the spirit, looked at the gentleman, and I said, do you want this spirit gone? He goes, yeah, I want it gone because my wife wants it gone. I said, really? But you don't want it gone. He goes, I don't care. She wants it gone. And it's like, no, you have to want to go. You have to let it, you want to let it go. You have to be the one. And because they were drinking buddies. And he also was drinking because his mother, he had some guilt over his mother passing. His mother showed up. And I gave him all this information from spirit. I told him what he looked like, and I gave the words that spirit gave me, his mother gave me to say to him, and he ended up bawling, crying. Well, I could not do a house clearing because he would not give me permission to do it. I said, there's nothing I can do to help you. I can clear the home, a little bit, but the spirit isn't going to go anywhere. And then the guy ended up in the hospital and the spirit went with him. The dogs were calm, his wife was calm, everybody was calm. So unless they want the spirit gone, and to that point, a lot of times the homeowner can actually do their own clearing because they own the property. And so, but just know that it does happen, okay? Where a spirit will be there, and you send it away with love and healing. Just don't send it away. You don't want to go into the neighbors and it wreaking havoc over there. You bring in your guides, you bring in ascended masters. Jesus is really good about this. So just know that. Go ahead, John, you got a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up about the homeowners. A lot of times they're in such a state of fear that you have to break them out of that, or nothing is going to work with the
Right.
clearing, because they're just so afraid of every little noise now that the house is making. It may or may not be what they think it is, but they get so hyped up in that fear that anything that is there is feeding off of that to begin with. And
Right.
they have no idea. It may be not what they think it is, and
Right.
and not as bad as they think. They've
That
got it
out,
in their
didn't
mind. What?
we found that out, didn't we? That's a whole other story. Yeah, Karen Michelle.
I have two questions quickly. One of them is, what if the belief system is with another that isn't Jesus? Do you change the wording? And then the other one is, what if the person believes that they are possessed and need an exorcism from that, as in that's their
Yeah, that can happen too.
and they believe
Yeah.
it's a demon.
Yeah, exactly. And there are people that they make that their work. I have a friend, in fact, she was just doing a Reiki session, and this woman, unbeknownst to her, ended up being possessed, and they were able to remove it. And it was wonderful. It was a beautiful experience, and it's about staying in love. And the other thing, it doesn't matter what you call in, you know, it really doesn't. You know, whatever ascended master that you feel comfortable with. But the key is do not go to fear, because you're feeding that entity. And sometimes they try to do things to get you to fear. Okay, so you got to be ready. You better be holding space, and you better stay in the love vibration, you know.
I was asked to do a resonance event, harp, last week, but one of the women there said that she was possessed and they were dealing with that. It wasn't what they had asked me to do, but that was just what was going on with her. And so I was a little apprehensive going in. I still went in, I did the event. I was fine. Everything felt fine to me. So I was a little thrown off by my not sensing it. I didn't
okay.
sense anything like that.
Yeah. So to that point, really quick, and I know, Silka, you have your hand up, and I want to hear what you have to say about that. The key is that if the person is possessed, they have allowed it on some level. And they could be experiencing a codependent relationship with that spirit. And I had a person possessed in front of me, and I said, "Are you ready to let him go?" And he said, "No." And the funny thing is I was holding my hands like this, you know, and I mean, I just did it like, you know, like I closed the circuit of my energy, and I just did it like, I don't know why I just did. And he goes, the spirit said to me, "I don't like the way that you're holding your hands." I said, "Well, get over it." And you know what I saw? And he saw it too. My dad stepped right in front of me, and that guy looked up at my dad. And I went, whoa. If a person is not ready to let that spirit go, you're not going to let it go. And there are people that have codependent relationships with a spirit. It might not be their guide. And you can tell, because all of a sudden you'll get really, really dizzy, really dizzy. That's one of the first things. It's a lower level energy, and you'll get so dizzy. And so the key is to stay out of fear. Now, I have one other point that I want to make to you guys. Go ahead, Silka. I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh my gosh, I hope I can sum it up in 30 seconds.
No, take your time. Go build it up.
You know,
Yeah.
I do Reiki healing and spirit attachments, which I have to kind of wave a little bit on that, because I went to a home some months back, and a friend of mine from massage therapy school in the past, he likes to sensationalize everything, right? His mama has Alzheimer's, but she is possessed with a demon or a spirit. And after long talking with him, I realized, well, we both realized she has Alzheimer's. Then he's invited me out to a friend's house, and he had his girlfriend shoot herself in the bedroom and home where he's still residing. And when I walked in the house, I could just literally pick up his emotions, that he has not processed it. He has not, you know, really let go of that shock of finding her dead in the bedroom after she shot herself. When I walked in that bedroom, though, because he kept telling me, oh, you know, she is still here. And I said, well, if you feel she's still here, do you want her to stay here? You know, he goes, oh, yeah, I want her here. It's fine that she's here. But I done a clearing. I smudged the whole house. And then I done a Reiki healing on him to kind of, you know, shift his vibration and clear him a little bit. But I could pick up his grieving. It was still so present, you know, and it was a number of years after all that occurred. When I walked into that bedroom where the young woman had shot herself, the only thing I've really felt, to me, it was like residual energy that was left behind in the imprint of it. But per se, I did not pick up her spirit. I felt very strongly that she did cross over. Do you know?
Okay, so explain. That's a really good point. You're talking about residual energy and vibration, and that felt different, right? So how did it feel to you? Just curious.
To me, when I first walked into that room, and that happens, and there's another story to that, why I know personally how it feels like to me, is I became just like off balanced. I became completely unbalanced, you know, kind of like you walk into a vortex almost. I get nauseating, sick to my stomach, and then I feel like I have a really hard pressure in my forehead. Do you know? So that's how that feels to me. But it's almost like a loop of reoccurring the same scene. And that I could see, you know, visually, clairvoyantly. It was like a loop that kept reoccurring. And it was all the emotions in one sum. His emotions, because he stayed in that home and still sleeps in that bedroom. And then I picked up the spirit's emotions at the time of the death. And there was a lot of depression in just a mucky kind of feeling. It's kind of like a mucky sensation in the pit of my stomach. And I got really sick for a while. I had to step outside after I've done that, you know, and get some fresh air and walk it off a little bit. But here's another one. I belong to a Comstock Historical Foundation. They do fundraisers to preserve history. And that's up here in Virginia City. And it's an old mining town. It's a ghost town, they call it that. But we went up there and it was for a fundraiser. And it's an old mine called the Donovan Mill. And if you ever been in a place in you're already open to the spirit world, well, do not sit in deep trance and then go up to an investigation like that, or in general. I think it is wise to kind of be more protective of your own energy and self. I walked in there, and before I even walked in the door, I got hit again with that wave of like, woof, right? I walked in there and I got orb galore. I see orbs, and the orbs were just coming at me, and in such a speed and intensity that a person that was with me, he does photography and he records all kinds of different events. He's, what do you call this? He well, let me get back to that later when I find the words. But he was with me. He was right next to me, and he got all those orbs coming at him in his camera or his video camera. And he said to me, Silke, I have never experienced that before. And I said, I don't know what to tell you, but I also felt the presence of spirit really strong. I could point out at one point, I felt it. I didn't see the spirit. I totally felt there was a spirit up there. Lady comes back to me later and shows me in a picture that she had taken a picture of that spirit where I saw or felt the spirit being at. But long story short, after that whole investigation, or going to that Donovan Mill, I wasn't really investigating, you know, it was interesting, it was for historical reasons. But I walked back out, and when I got home that night and for 2 days afterwards at night, and this is what I tried to avoid as a medium, because I would need to sleep at night. I already have issues with that. I laid in bed, could not go to sleep, that tired. And I had all these faces coming at me, and they were just like from waist up or just from chest up, right? And the faces were all like from not this time period. And it wasn't something I imagined or wishful thinking. They were just all coming in at different stages, right? And I'm laying there going, oh yeah, this is so not what I needed. They trained me. And there's the Reiki healing too. I get trained. I have to be cautious who I have coming into my home, because I absorb so much of other people's energies, how sick they are. The lady comes in a couple of weeks ago. Her husband just passed away 3 weeks ago. She just tells me, oh, I'm really sad. I need to come in and see you. I'm going to bring my daughter along. Well, once she comes walking into my home, then she proceeds to tell me, well, my husband just passed away 3 weeks ago, and I knew him. He came to me here before, right? I picked up all of her pain, all of her grieving, all the body aches and pains that she experienced, because I've told her my whole body's just like hurt, right? But in certain areas. And I've told her, I said, this is hurting and this is what I'm experiencing. Is this what you have going on? She goes, oh yes, yada, yada, yada. I said, oh, great. And then her daughter, same thing. So I had 2 people just in this state of grieving with all those physical ailments that go on too with grieving. You do experience that in different ways. But I was wiped out. I was wiped out for days afterwards. So one thing I have
So
to
could you-
say to,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
no, it is up there. See, I do Reiki healing and massage therapy, and sometimes I am being asked to do clearings. And this crossing over with spirit, I have to be really honest with you. I have a little bit of a difficulty maybe believing it.
Mhm.
Once the body dies, the spirit moves on. That is a privilege for all of us.
Yeah, that's right. The spirit.
That we are not just here.
It-
He
now-
is different things. So I
So
don't
what you're
know.
saying could be true. It could be a residual vibration.
Mhm.
It could be.
It could be. I don't really know that either. Do you see? So I'm really
But-
open-minded here, but some stuff I'm kind of wondering if there is life after life and our body dies and our soul moves on. Why would we be staying here and be what they say, being stuck here? Do you see? I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't get it either. I mean, I'm going to be running to the other side.
Yeah,
Telling you, I'm going to do the biggest sprint you've ever seen.
right.
But okay, so there was a spirit that was stuck. It was a little girl, and I said she was wreaking havoc in this household. Like she was like turning the paintings and all this other stuff. I said, "Oh my God, this is a little girl, and she's
Mhm.
doing this."
Mhm.
And so I talked to her, and I said, "How did you get in the house?" And she said, "Oh, I came in with the dog. I love the dog." And and she pushed me a little bit, you know, like, "Hey, who are you?" You know, and it's like, "You're ruining my fun." And it's like, "You come here, little girl," I said to her. And I took her, I closed the door, and we were in the bathroom together. And so I had a little talk with her. And when all of a sudden I saw the light come, and all of a sudden, believe it or not, Jesus came right in. And when he came in, she looked at him and her mouth like dropped to the floor. Like I heard stories of him, but I didn't think he was real. He gave her the biggest hug and they went. And after that, there was no issues in the house whatsoever. So again, we have to get to the point where our experience is our proof. Like I didn't believe in elementals, okay? But I had a very big 6-month-long experience. Thank you, John, for this learning experience. I mean, there was definitely a man playing with your tools, but there was an elemental in his garage, okay? And it was insane. And it took me like, I didn't know if I believed either. And then I went to a friend who does Reiki, and she said, and this elemental attached to me. And she said, "Rochelle," she says, "that's an elemental. That's not a spirit. And he's still attached to you." She said, "I put Saint Germain's violet flame in there, but he's stuck there." And he was on, I felt him. He was on there for a good week until my friend called me and said, "You want to go for a bike ride near the woods?" And I did. And I literally saw him jump off my back and go in. And he said, "I'm home." Okay. And I would have, your proof, your experience is your proof, is what I want to say.
Yes,
Okay.
and you know, I just wanted to step back a little bit on grief and reading someone when a loved one just crossed over. This couple, or the mom and daughter team, they wanted me to give them information about their her husband. And I have to tell you, that grief was just so raw, and I don't ever take advantage of people. I would suggest usually at least a year. If the craving seems to be still just so strong, I wait a little bit longer. You know, you can't do this to people when they're in that process, in that state, you know. I mean, I picked up all of her emotions and I was just wiped out. So I can just imagine how you could influence somebody in their grieving process was bringing through a loved one that he wasn't even ready to really come in. The one thing I did see was his daughter at the Reiki healing, or standing at the foot of the table by her feet. I had a beautiful orb appear way behind in the corner. And that was so visual. That is the one thing I did tell them. And I spoke about love, and healing, and take your time. And it is like, what's this young lady, Anita, said, it is your grieving. That is your time. You can tell somebody, oh, I understand what you're going through, because
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
I do not understand, because that is
That's right.
you, not me.
Right.
So yeah, and choose wisely. When you have one foot on this plane and one foot on the other side, and you are choosing to work with that, I would suggest, and personally, I'm reminding myself, I choose wisely where I go and what I interact with. Do you know?
Exactly. And I've heard people, because they can't match the vibration of a spirit coming through. So they're, instead of saying they're not here, or I can't match the vibration, it's not a vibrational match, they'll say, oh, that person's stuck in the tunnel. That's such crap. No one gets stuck in the tunnel.
Yeah, I was
Right.
honest. I told her straight out when that started. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do this right now. I can't connect with your husband at this point. Maybe in the future, a year or more from now, we can work on that or talk about it. I gave them a Reiki healing and massage to alleviate some of this pain that they felt, and that was it.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Silka, there's two people that have raised their
Yeah,
hands.
yeah.
but-
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, the one thing
sorry.
I want to suggest to you, no, this is something that is really important. Sorry, Spirit, tell me again. Oh, when you have all those faces coming at you, that is your time to sleep. Okay, you have to make sure that your guides understand that. Now, what I have done, because your light is so bright and all of a sudden you have all these spirits coming to you, it's like, can you help me? Can you help me? What I have done in the past is I literally imagined a portal outside my bedroom, and I have a guide stand out there, and I say, you cannot walk through my bedroom. You go out to that portal, and that portal will take you to the light. And I instruct my guides, and whether they do it or not, I don't know. But the key is I'm getting a good night's sleep. Okay. So the key is that you can visually set up a portal there. It will be there every night. Put that beacon out there. Instead of you walking through my bedroom and coming at me, you set up that portal. They're not allowed in your bedroom. Your guides can direct them there. Unless there's some emergency, like the house is on fire, you are not to be woken up. You see? So try that, see if that helps. Michelle had her hand up, and then John, I'll get to you.
I said that my bedroom and my bathroom are off limits. That's my
Okay.
those are
Yeah.
off limits. That's my off limits place. But
Yeah.
I don't know if this goes hand in hand or not, but I thought I would bring it up anyway. And just a side note with the elementals, for some reason, and I think it's the resonance with the harp, I seem to be a little bit of a magnet. They don't stick around. It's like I'll hop in and hop out wherever they're going. It's kind of just a little going just
Well,
like
you're the elemental queen. I mean, you are. That's so cool. And I didn't even believe in them. And then I got a huge transformational experience that showed me that they are very real. And they are. And you know, they come in all different sizes, and they are 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional.
What do they look like?
Well, it just depends. Mine was about thigh height. And when I first saw him, he looked like Gollum, okay, from the Lord of the Rings. And when I saw him the next time, he looked totally healed, and he looked like a little toddler with pointed ears and beautiful brown hair. And he was just gorgeous and sweet, like a little toddler. So, but Karen, Michelle, I don't know what
I'm
yours.
I've seen all sorts of different ones from when I was real little and growing up, and they look so, so very different, all different shapes, sizes. I'm just under 5 feet, and I've seen them where they're much taller than me. Um, and then all but smaller. And
And they
I
love nuts. They love nuts. They
And
love,
I've left candy out, but then what happened was more came in and I thought, okay, this is not the way to go. So I started leaving decorations, crystals and stuff because I didn't want I didn't want a flood, so to speak. So I did another route. I just started leaving crystals and doing music. And so it's kind of a little hop through, so to speak. I have a
And-
sculpture that my husband did of one. He worked with the Frauds, and so he did a sculpture of one that was taken from an image. If you want me to just show it on the camera.
yeah, that'd be great. And then John, your question?
Yeah, I was just commenting on what Silka with as far as waiting to read. What I found out, if they come through right away, like a loved one that had passed, that they are there to help them and they need that help. Because I don't decide who comes through, it's who comes through to help that person. Like a lady I did, she actually came back and told me how helpful it was. I can't remember what I told her because it's what spirit, it was her husband, she was married for years and she was just lost. And he came through with help for her to help her in the process. She said she still had her good and bad days, but things were getting better. Now, I don't know how much more you could ask,
Right. And John, you bring up a good point. When we read, we all have psychic amnesia. All of a sudden we don't remember what was said and they'll call you back up. Remember when you said this? And it's like, no, it's kind of like that.
I also
Hey, you guys, the one thing I want to get in really quick is that I am going to ask you guys for testimonials for the class. My marketing person is doing like a marketing reel, and it's videos. You can record it as much as you want. But if you guys want to help me out, or if you think it's a crappy class, I was going to do like a survey, but I haven't done that. But any things where you think I should improve or whatever, please, I'm open. And that's all I want to say. And I'll send you the link, but it has to be video. She wants a video. You can record it as many times as you want, but I'll send you guys the link. Karen Michelle, I'm sorry. Go back to what you were saying about the wonderful.
Oh, okay. And I did want to add that I've played for, I teach this, but I've also played for people who are crossing over as they're crossing over. And so I've seen the imprint that is there when they cross, but the moment that they do cross or just before, I've seen where it almost looks like, oh, they're coming back, as in they're not leaving, they're coming back, but they're not. It's this flush where they look around and you see them be it's this beautiful, even if they're not conscious, you see their spirit, their spirit self. I'm not sure what the name to put on it, but for lack of a better term, their spirit self sit and be greeted by their guides, their spirit. You see the crossing, you see the interaction, and if they're aware of you or the guide's aware of you, they'll look at you. And I've had it where they were conscious and they've asked me, see, this is who I'm talking to. This is my sister. This is my mother. And there it is. And I've done this with harp in the room. So it's with music in the room, but it's in this whole interaction happens. And sometimes it's very fast, but it's interesting. It's interesting. It's not scary. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. You're so right. One other thing, really quickly, you guys, I'm going to throw this out there. You can look this up on the internet. There is something that is called a geopathic stress line. Okay. And our homes and a lot of the homes are built on geopathic stress lines. And where they intersect, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but where people will get sick in a neighborhood and they all have the same thing, but they're all their beds might be on a geopathic stress line. So where they, so just be aware of that. You can use dowsing rod, divining rods to find them. And where they intersect, sometimes, where you have beehives that build it on an intersection on a geopathic stress line, so you might know where one is, but where it intersects perpendicularly, that is where a portal can be created. And when that portal gets created, you can have things come in. And like if you've seen some places in England where all of a sudden stuff was flying around the room, I guarantee you a lot of times it's a geopathic stress line. So when it intersects, you can actually put like a crystal or a steel rod, and that calms it right down. So just know that. So look up geopathic stress lines, because that can happen. And they've done studies in different places where it potentially can cause disease, like on a whole street. And so what do? And the key is that you might just have to rearrange your furniture or whatever, just to make sure that it's not on a geopathic stress line, or certainly not an intersection, because that's where a lot of activity happens. So just know that. And like I said, you can calm it down and like close it just by putting a crystal, or a steel plate or something. So I had like several in my last home. So I had all this stuff everywhere. People are like, what's that? I had to pick it up when I, sold the home. But anyways, John, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment real quick that we used the pendulum to find them on my property, if you remember.
You could do
Was
that.
another way to do it.
Yeah, the pendulum, divining rods, where you use them, and and they go, woo, and then you go the other way. So you've marked it, you got one, and then you go this way. And is it like, are they intersecting? And if they're not, you're fine. Just, make sure you don't have any furniture there. Just move, especially a bed. You don't want to be sitting in that for 8 hours, sleeping, because they haven't been able to explain it energetically. But there have been people, I don't know if you've heard of it, where all of a sudden everybody on the street ended up with a brain cancer or something, and they all had their beds on that geopathic stress line. So just know that, okay? And look that up. I did a class on it, and so forth. And there's videos out on YouTube about it as well. So yeah. So I think that's all I've got to give you guys. How are you guys feeling? This is our last class, but we're going to practice, right? We're going to practice. So was that very helpful to you guys? This was like a really deep.
Yes,
discussion.
it was. I just in my other field there where I work with, we don't talk about these things. And I had a lot of experiences, but it's not allowed to talk about.
Oh, I know. And that was my aunt too. God love her. I mean, but everything was love, but that was her view of the world, and that's okay. And we need to stay in love. We want like attract like, right? And so we want to stay in that love vibration, but we can walk into a situation. That's why keep practicing, like as you walk and all of a sudden you feel the air temperature change to cold or hot or whatever, that builds your sensitivity of things that are ever so subtle, that you're training your mind to sense these things, is what I want to say. I almost said pick up, but I didn't. So anyway, any questions or any comments before I close the class? Yeah, Karen Michelle.
Sorry, I know I'm feeling
No,
that. you said that, are we gonna be meeting weekly, or did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, we're gonna do meet weekly, and it's gonna be from 6 to 8 on Sunday Eastern time. Is what I'm gonna do, and it'll be a drop-in, so, you know, I'm gonna open it up to the mediumship class that's out there, because I'm sure there's other people that want to practice and stuff. So what we'll do is we'll do different exercises. So it'll be 2 hours. I mean, if we can get it done in an hour, that's really great. We're going to practice, do one-on-one reads. You know, we'll divide them up in groups. Now, one of the things that I might do is say, okay, well, today we're going to do a psychic read and then a mediumship read or something. So you guys can learn about that. And if you guys are using cards for that as a focal point, that's fine. You know, that's fine. The key is that when we do, you know, psychic, you know, we're building the energy for the mediumship, but we'll build it with everybody anyway. But we might do something like that. And, you know, if you don't feel like doing a psychic read, you just want to practice mediumship, that's fine too. Okay, I think that's all I have for you guys. I hope that this has been really wonderful for you guys. I hope it was money well spent, and that you got a lot from the class. And feel free to email me any comments. Also, again, just to let you guys know again, I'll put a coupon code of class free. This next week, my son's going to be in town, and we're doing a first birthday for my grandson. So I kind of like didn't book anything, so you won't see anything on my calendar for this week, but certainly the 14th on. And if you can't find anything, email me or text me, you guys, and I'll make time for you. Okay, because I marked off Saturdays, but I can certainly do something on a Saturday. So I just don't want to do reads on a Saturday. So for now, anyway, I loved meeting all of you. I am so grateful for all of you. I'm going to stop the recording. I don't want this to end.